morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to the Currie Spot. My name is Gill and
I'm Amanda Potter. Thanks for coming back.
do you remember, Amanda, we were talking about how to raise your immunity, and we've done vitamin C and we've done zinc, and we also made some hydroxychloroquine.
Oh yes, I've still got loads in the fridge. I keep baking it. I made a big batch yesterday. Lovely.
We keep making it, don't we? Amanda's even gone and bought yourself a pressure cooker, haven't you?
I have. It's so much easier with the pressure cooker.
And I've started making, so when I make it and it leaves all that pulp, I make an almond, gluten-free cake out of the pulp. It's delicious.
Well, I've got the ingredients, so I'm going to give that a go later because obviously I've got all the pulp in the fridge at the minute.
Yes, that's brilliant. But the one thing that we haven't got around to, and it's a bit remiss really, is that the one thing that we do know that has been a big factor in people contracting and surviving or having lesser symptoms through COVID is vitamin D3. So we do really need to talk about that.
Oh, well, I've started taking the supplements because of you and I feel fabulous.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to tell me why.
So vitamin D3, it's actually a hormone, actually.
Oh.
Just a vitamin, it's a hormone as well. And vitamin D3 is one of those things that it's very, very difficult to get it from food. So what we know in the northern hemisphere here is that the majority of people are very lacking in it for the majority of the year, at least half of the year. So we know that people, for example, who suffer from SAD, seasonal affective disorder, vitamin D affects your moods. We know that people who suffer from SAD need to supplement with vitamin D3. So even those people that have a mild version of that, they should be supplementing. So we've known that for some time. But one of my favourite stories about vitamin D3 is, I don't know if I've probably told you this one, is that what I do know, and I became very aware of it when I first started studying nutraceuticals and vitamins and minerals and herbs, was a friend of mine told me her wonderful story about her practice in Peterborough, and there's quite a big Asian population in Peterborough. And I don't know if you know, and I wasn't aware that, Asian families are quite large. They tend to have slightly bigger families, and that although their Asian women have bigger families, they also are quite known for having quite a lot of miscarriages.
Oh, right.
And so my friend, this is probably about 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, what she worked out was that Asian women, they were not having a very good diet. They're largely vegetarian, and that it was very sort of male orientated. The women were very much stay at home, look after the children, look after the husband, and their needs were kind of second. Right. And they would have leftovers. They would perhaps just have a biscuit at lunchtime and a main meal in the evening. And also they would cover themselves up, obviously, when they were outside, whether it was in the winter or the summer. And consequently, many dark-skinned people are vitamin D deficient.
Wow.
What we know about COVID, and particularly when it was rife last year, was that there were higher numbers of people that were dying with darker skins. And so, it became very clear that the people that understood what was going on knew that vitamin D would have a part to play in this. And in fact, it's quoted something like 9 out of 10 people that died of COVID, not with it, were vitamin D deficient.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And although it was kind of branded like, well, it were the Asian families living on top of one another that were, they were getting these kind of extra viral loads, and this is why a lot of them were dying. It wasn't just people of that economic group. It was people like doctors and lawyers and surgeons, and it was more about the color of their skin rather than their economic situation.
Or the number of people in the home, you mean?
The number of people in the home, absolutely. And so, you know, if you look at anybody that's outside the mainstream, then all of those people that are working as in sort of metaphysics and in complementary medicine or alternate or natural medicine or whatever it is you want to call it, all of them to a man will be saying you need to supplement with vitamin D3. Now, a lot of people will now say to me, yeah, but Jill, it's sunny now, although it hasn't been very sunny in the last few weeks here, has it? So I don't need to be taking D3. But the rub of this is that unless your body is performing at its optimum, so if your body is the cleanest it can be, if you had no stress, no environmental, endogenous or exogenous stress, so things from the environment, things from the outside, if you had no stresses in your life, if you were eating the cleanest organic food, if you were in an area that wasn't polluted, if you were drinking water that was pure and fresh and spring water, so you were getting enough sleep and enough exercise, then no, you probably wouldn't need to be supplementing with vitamin D3 at the moment. But the majority of us are not in that situation. Right. So the majority of us are not at that optimum health state. If you look at it in a continuum where, you know, down here is, you know, poor health and up here is optimum health, most of us operate within this kind of continuum here.
Okay.
So in other words, does it make sense to you that in order for us to increase our immunity, we need to do everything we can all the time to provide that extra support?
Right.
So vitamin D3, it's not D2, by the way, it needs to be vitamin D3. You need sort of 5 to 10 international units a day. I personally, with 2 forms, I take the little lemony stucky ones that I've given you.
Yeah.
I also have it in a drink, in another drink I have vitamin D there. So I'm taking, and I have been all the time been taking vitamin D3 to about 5,000 international units.
Okay.
But one of the things about vitamin D3 is that it works in conjunction with zinc.
Right.
Why, when there are various immunologists talking about it, they just don't talk about D3 in isolation. They say vitamin C, vitamin D3 and zinc, because zinc helps to reduce the viral load. So one of the reasons that we've seen nurses and doctors who've had extreme symptoms of COVID in those early days was because they were around lots of people, so their viral load was very high. And this is kind of the sort of stuff that's going to happen with this jab that we've got now, is that the viral load, when the next load of coronavirus comes along, potentially will have the same effect. It's called pathogenic priming, basically. So we need to do even more now, particularly if you have had the jab, to raise your immune system. Because zinc, what zinc also does, it helps you to absorb vitamin D3 as well.
Okay.
So what we must do is make sure that we're having those two things in you know, in conjunction with one another. Does that make sense?
Okay. It makes a lot of sense. Yes.
Okay, so that's my vitamin D3. So go back and look at the other videos about vitamin C, how to get that, where to get your zinc from, about hydroxychloroquine, and we'll see you the next time on the Currie Spot.
See you again soon. Bye.